What if your biggest risk was not taking one? What if you could make every move matter? Bank of America's Business Solutions can help bring your biggest what-ifs within reach. Find out how our digital tools, cutting-edge insights, and trusted expertise can work for your business. What would you like the power to do? Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank sponsor of FIFA World Cup 2026.
Old Spice Swagger Body Wash will make you the MVP of freshness and confidence. With its irresistible scent, it will transform your shower experience, leaving you feeling fresh on and off the field. Pair it with Old Spice Swagger Deodorant, the #1 aluminum-free brand that keeps you feeling like a Super Bowl champion 24/7 when used daily. But don't wait. This dynamic duo is available at Costco for a limited time only. Old Spice, official deodorant partner of the NFL and Super Bowl 59, where freshness meets football greatness.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Eye on the Hill 2025. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
A top priority for the Utah House of Representatives this legislative session has been addressing concerns on elections. Earlier in the session, we spoke with State Representative Jefferson Burton about some of those bills. Now there are updates to one of them, House Bill 300. Now, Taylor, our regular host for today, Taylor Morgan's a little close to this topic, so he's going to step away for this discussion, and our producer, Andy Cupp, is going to join me instead. Representative Burton, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So can you give us the Cliff's Notes version of the latest changes? You know, we've talked about this before, but where are we in the process right now? Can we still vote by mail? Do we need to use a drop box and verify ID? Where do things stand currently?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We've listened very closely to the voters. We've gotten a lot of feedback. We've had a lot of meetings with the county clerks, the lieutenant governor's office, and so forth. And so the changes to the bill, you can still vote by mail. And I still believe that primarily most Utahns will choose that option. You have to opt in to do that. And once this thing's in full swing, your opt-in will last for 8 years. You'll just renew that when you renew your driver's license or your state ID or register a car, so forth. So vote by mail is still alive and well in Utah. Our citizens spoke in large numbers saying they wanted to retain that. The change will be that you'll need to put the last 4 of your driver's license or state ID number with your voting materials when you send those back. You can mail them back, as many have done in the past, but in the last election in 24, about 65% of Utahns used a drop box, and you can still use those drop boxes. There won't be any need to show your identification at the drop box because it'll be in your envelope, and you can just drop that and in that way be assured that it'll get there in time. I think that's why most Utahns have preferred the drop box. So vote by mail is alive and well. We will have polls open, as we always have, for folks that prefer to vote in person. And so some do, and they'll be able to go do that as well. And in a traditional way, showing your ID and going into a booth and voting.
Representative, just a quick clarification, because I know there was some confusion. When you say the last 4 digits of the driver's license on the envelope, that's in addition to the signature, not instead of the signature, correct?
Yeah, we went back and forth on this, and the best way I can describe it is if you are trying to get access to a certain program or app, you've heard of second level authentication. You may get a text with a number on it to put in so that they know it's you when you open that particular application. As it stands currently, you'll put that 4 digits on, but you'll also sign it, and it'll be a second form of authentication. The reality is Utah wasn't doing well when compared to other states. We were 33 out of 50 for election security. Primary reason for that was we weren't using ID. This bill brings us to number 9 out of 50 and improves the security of the election overall.
So with that, with our ranking currently at 33 out of 50, but these changes would take us to 9 out of 50, where is that ranking coming from? Can you tell us a little bit more about who's behind those numbers? I'm curious on that.
Yeah, the group that we actually followed, because they're probably the most aware when it comes to voting security, and we liked what the way they present the facts, is the Heritage Foundation, and that's where we got these numbers. And again, it seems to me the people that I've talked to, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you care about election integrity. You don't want shenanigans going on in your elections. And Utah did a very good job. I'm very proud of our county clerks and our lieutenant governor's office and the way they run elections. But this idea of showing ID, 81% of Americans in a Pew Research study say they believe you should show ID when you vote. And so this is just a way to check in the databases that we have to show that you are who you say you are when you're voting by mail.
So one of the other concerns we've heard from lawmakers who've spoken about this bill is that it would improve the speed by which voters get results. So we'd start to see things on election night. Now, I know this. I lived this firsthand. I ran for office this last year, and it took a few days, took several days before we really had the results kind of solidified enough to know where we were going with this. So, but there were results that started coming in already on election night, and that was really kind of up to the counties and the state to get those results in. So how does this change that? I mean, are we changing the canvas date? Are we, how does this impact sort of seeing those results coming in quicker?
Yeah, and honestly, that was one of the things that surprised me the most in the data, the surveys, and the polls that we saw, just how much that troubled Utahns, that Utah can't seem to release election results on the night of the election. They watch the map, the rolling map on TV, whether it's CNN or Fox or whatever you choose, and they say, why can't Utah do that? Well, we believe that they can, and this bill requires that Utah release those results on election night. In most cases, those are mathematical projections that states are making. But we believe that you can mathematically do that and get it done to give voters confidence that there aren't shenanigans going on in elections, more ballots found later type thing. One of the ways we're getting after that is the ballots that are on hand by election night at 8 o'clock are the ones that are counted. What we mean by that is we had a lot of people disenfranchised in 2024 because the mail made some mistakes and didn't get their ballots turned in on time. That slowed down election results. And so I would just encourage people to use the drop boxes when they're turning their ballots in, because you can then know that your ballot will be there by election night. And that will make it much easier to call the election. And we understand. I lived in Germany as a soldier for 4 years, and I voted by mail. And some of those ballots may not be back by election night, but statistically they aren't enough to change the election results. So those ballots will count, but they won't change the results, so they can still be reported. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was kind of one of my questions, because right now the way it works is you have election night, and that's when everything has to be in. But the state does a canvass of the election, 2 weeks or so after election night. And so it doesn't sound like we're changing the canvass at all. We're still going to have that canvass. So there's still going to be potentially some time between election night and when the official results are certified with that canvass. But the hope is that we have enough results in on election night that we know we essentially know the results of the elections, even though we may not be doing the canvass. Is that an accurate representation of what we're trying to do here?
Yeah, I think you're right. The reality is most states that are able to report the election call it, per se, the night of the election, are using mathematical probabilities. They have enough votes in that they can call the election. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. Voters just want to know. You may remember back in some previous elections, some states didn't call the election the night of, and then more votes were found, and it just became an issue that caused concern with voters. I think what's foundational to our democratic republic is belief in our election system, that it's free and that it's fair, and that only those people who have identification are voting. And so that's what the genesis of this bill is about. And I think what you said is accurate. The canvass does occur later, but you can statistically call the election, and we didn't do that.
So I think the big basis of this bill and of these election bills has been election security, making elections more secure. And I think most people can get behind that idea that elections need to be secure or more secure. You referenced that we are 33 out of 50, which is pretty abysmal. I'm curious then if you, I guess what your thoughts are on previous elections then. If we're that poor at election security, do we need to go back and reevaluate the results of previous elections because they could have been significantly different because we're, I guess, poor at election security? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think so, Andy. We did 2 audits following the 2024 election, and really I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, we've got great professionals that run our elections here in Utah. And while we found a few concerns, they weren't massive like they found in other states. One of the things we did find, though, and I think it's important to note in this bill, there's a lot in there regarding cleaning up voter rolls. And that's one of the things we found, it's like 1,400 dead people on voter rolls. We need to clean those up. And this bill helps Lieutenant Governor and the office to work on that. It's a never-ending battle to keep those rolls clean. But I think the answer to your question is no. Utah has done a very good job. We just want to add to that security so that voters know that those who vote, their vote counts, and those who vote are authorized to do so. That it's not being manipulated by people who shouldn't vote.
So tell us, we've got about a minute left, Representative. Tell us, what is the next step for the bill? What happens at this point?
Yeah, we have a duplicative process. So this bill generated in the House. It went through a committee. It got sliced and diced in the committee. It went on the floor of the House, and it passed there. Now it is in the hands of the Senate. The Senate will do the same process. It'll hit a committee. It'll be argued, and then if it passes the committee, then it goes to the Senate for a vote. And then finally, the governor gets to decide whether to sign it into law or to veto it. And so the process works. I mean, the time we spent with the stakeholders made all the difference in the original bill to what it is now. And again, we're trying to listen to our voters, regardless of party, and making sure that we take the good ideas that are presented to us and run through those. And if we can put them into the bill, we do.
Thank you so much, State Representative Jefferson Burton, for joining us. So grateful to have you on the show, and we look forward to having you back. Thanks so much. Have a great day. I think this also just highlights the importance of connecting with your legislators, right? We've talked about that a little bit in the show in previous episodes, but changes are being made because of things that people are saying and the way they're connecting with their legislators. So if you have opinions on a bill, go talk to your legislator. It actually does make a difference. When Inside Sources returns, more coverage of the legislative session. We're going to take a look at a bill to fund downtown Salt Lake City's revitalization project after the break.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shaleos, KSL's top local story. Water managers are hoping we get more snow before the start of spring runoff, as experts warn not all of our mountain snow water is going to make it to our reservoirs.
Well, we definitely haven't gotten nearly as much snow this year compared to the last 2 winters, but we're actually only about 8% below normal for this time of year on average in our statewide snowpack. In fact, all of northern Utah's mountains are sitting above or near normal. But National Weather Service hydrologist Glenn Merrill tells me thanks to the dry end of fall we had and the current drought conditions affecting most of the state,
we are going to have net loss, which isn't uncommon.
Merrill says the current forecasts are predicting we'll lose roughly 15 to 20% of our snow water to the dry soil. But despite that, he says our water supply will not be an issue anywhere in Utah this year, with our average reservoir level well above average. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national stories this hour from ABC News. President Trump had his first cabinet meeting today. He praised Elon Musk and his work at Doge.
Elon Musk was asked when he can make a directive on social media telling federal employees that they have to respond to an email if secretaries in the cabinet have to follow that order. He didn't answer that, but made it very clear that the president has given him wide latitude to take action like that. And the president seemed to back that up when he said that people who are not responding to those types of messages are right now on the bubble and still at risk of getting fired.
That is ABC's Karen Travers reporting. Taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow is down by more than 200 points, sitting at 43,407. S&P down by 7. The NASDAQ gets up by 6 points. Coming up, it's colder today, but it's going to get warmer. We'll take a look at the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Transform your living space with Zerorez, where cleaner carpets mean a healthier home. Right now, get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for only $109. And if you mention KSL News Radio, enjoy a hallway clean for free. Zerorez uses patented technology that cleans without harsh chemicals, ensuring your carpets stay fresh and safe for kids and pets. Experience faster dry times. Your carpets will be ready in hours, not days. Plus, with the Zerorez Gotta Love It guarantee, if you're not satisfied, Zerorez will re-clean for free within 30 days. Spring is around the corner, making it the perfect time to tackle your cleaning. Did you know up to 40 pounds of debris can accumulate in your carpets annually? Refresh your home with Zerorez's Deep Clean, removing winter's grime and odors. Let Zerorez help you refresh your home. Call 866-ZEROREZ or visit Zerorez.com to schedule your appointment today. That's 866-ZEROREZ or Zerorez.com.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and right now at Hale Center Theater, 2 magnificent plays are on both of the stages waiting for you. You've heard me talk about Little Women, the classic tale, the musical. The family is going to love that. And now, Dee and I went to the opening of The Prince of Egypt. I have to tell you, I've never seen that before, and it is spectacular. I want you to imagine a chariot race between the 2 brothers, Ramses and Moses, that happen while in the air above you at Hale Center Theater. That's just one of the highlights. And I have to tell you, while every performer is magnificent in the play, the Pharaoh, when the Pharaoh is on stage, he commands the theater. And how in the world do you present all of the plagues and miracles? Hale Center Theater does it beautifully. This is the time, too, to get your season tickets, especially if you want to see Frozen. All you have to do is go to hct.org.
Is using separate office technology like business telephones, chat, video conferencing, and file transferring complicated and pricey? What if all of those things were bundled into one simple product that has over 99.9% uptime, crystal clear quality, and is affordable? And what if you could get your business telephone bundle from a proven office technology partner like Les Olson IT? You can. Les Olson IT.
Are you and your credit card ready for some peace and quiet? Experience the relief of a low rate with the Mountain America credit card. With a 3% cash bonus on balance transfers, it's more relaxing than ever. Open a Mountain America credit card today for your limited time bonus. Details at macu.com/transfer. Loans and approved credit. Membership required based on eligibility. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. And here's Ricky Meese.
We do have crews on the scene working to clear a crash on southbound I-15. It's after downtown, but before 1300 South. They're pulling away now, but it had been blocking a left lane of traffic. Also in the cleanup stages, an accident southbound 5600 West, about 1700 South. Utah Symphony performs the greatest classical hits from the 1700s to today at Abravanel Hall. Don't miss Mahler, Mozart, and more. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today's high 49 degrees, but the temperature's creeping up all the way to 60 degrees for a high on Sunday. Right now, 45 degrees and a lot of sunshine in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm Maria Shilaos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Downtown Salt Lake City is going to see some major changes in the next few years as the Delta Center and surrounding areas undergo a transformation. However, one question with all of this has been really at the heart. It has been controversial, and that is, what is the future going to be for the Salt Palace Convention Center? This year in the legislative session, a Senate bill is attempting to address that concern, to answer that question. It would result in tax dollars going to fund the downtown revitalization zone. Welcome back to Inside Sources. This is Taylor Morgan alongside Aaron Ryder. Aaron, you're a local attorney. You were recently the Republican nominee for Salt Lake County Mayor. This issue, I know, is something that was big in that race and something that you're a bit of an expert on. What do we need to know about this?
Yeah, this was one of the biggest issues of my campaign, and a lot of my campaign focused on the Abravanel Hall portion of this debate. But there's this whole block right now between the Delta Center and City Creek Mall, and that's what we're discussing. What happens to that area, and how do we develop that in the future? Now, there's some really good and legitimate concerns with this. The Salt Palace kind of splits the city in half, really. And so you have everything west of the Salt Palace, everything east of the Salt Palace. But when the Salt Palace was built, it was built over First South, and it kind of chopped the city in half. So part of what is going on here is they're trying to turn this into an entertainment, cultural district that would reconnect those two sides of the city. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good plan. The issue with this from the beginning has been, how do you fund it, and what happens to some of the key areas on this? If you remember last year, there were lots of debates about Japantown and what happens to Japantown. Abravanel Hall, of course, was a big one. And now the conversation is shifting to the Salt Palace. So the Salt Palace is Salt Lake County property. Salt Lake County runs and owns the Salt Palace.
Okay.
And in order to do this, Salt Lake City's already taken care of their portion. So now it's really down to SEG and the county to figure out how they're going to do the rest.
Now, sorry, to clarify something. I have this question. Does Salt Lake County also own the land immediately surrounding the convention center, or is that owned and controlled by Salt Lake City still?
They do own some of it. So, like the land that Abravanel Hall is on, the land that the Salt Palace is on, kind of that section right there, that's county property.
Okay.
So the stuff to the west of it, a lot of that was city property. The city already negotiated that with SEG. But now the county portion has to come into play. So the county has to figure out how they're going to fund this. And there's a lot that goes into this. But one of the things they're trying to do, they've asked the legislature to shift tax dollars that were originally allocated for transportation funding and put them instead into the revitalization and rebuild of the Salt Palace. It doesn't cover the full cost, but it's a way for them to cover part of the cost.
Okay.
So, Taylor, I want to know what you think about this too. You are aware of this. You know what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, let me start here. I personally am very excited about revitalizing downtown Salt Lake City.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, we need it. We desperately need it. I'm excited about the future of this community, cultural, sports, entertainment zone, as we're calling it. Excited about the future, of course, of the Utah Hockey Club. Listening this morning to KSL Morning News with Amanda and Andy, they were talking about how much of an economic impact the hockey team is already having on surrounding businesses in this area. So clearly the future is bright, and I'm excited about it. But anytime we start talking about taxpayer dollars,
that's the rub.
It raises red flags. And I live in the south portion of Salt Lake County. My property taxes have gone up considerably over the last several years. We know that the Salt Lake County Council just voted to approve an additional sales tax increase in Salt Lake County to cover some jail capacity
Public
issues.
Safety,
I also know that Salt Lake County has currently the highest sales tax in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of concerns about raising taxes, and especially when it comes to providing resources to, I don't want to say just subsidizing billionaires, because that's not what's happening. It's far more complicated than that. But will the economic benefits really be there? Will the payoff be there for these tax dollars on the front end? That's my question.
Yeah.
I think this bill that we're going to talk about, it's Senate Bill 306, Convention Center Investment Amendment, sponsored by Senator Dan McKay. I think this bill is potentially really good, but still some of the details need to come into sharper focus for me.
Well, and what's interesting to me is that, part of the county's argument has been that look, we don't really need these transportation dollars. Most of the roads at this point are managed by the cities, and we're essentially wall-to-wall city at this point. So the county's role over roads is really pretty much limited to the canyons. And so
we have some work to do there. Can I just put that out there? Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
We can talk about that another time because, that's a big topic. However, it's not what it used to be when most of Salt Lake County was unincorporated. So the argument is, let's take this money and instead of keeping it in this bucket for transportation that we're not really using, let's put it towards the Salt Palace. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, other than to say, if you're not using that money, if you don't need that for transportation, why are we taking tax dollars with high property tax rates already? Why are we taking tax dollars and putting it into transportation that the county's not even using?
Yeah, this is tough because I do think that this revitalization project in downtown Salt Lake City is absolutely necessary. I see, at least initially, the early returns in terms of the economic benefits of investing in downtown. I'm very excited about the potential future of the Power District area.
Yep, I think that's going to be great with the baseball.
All of that is wonderful, Aaron. But again, we're talking about tax dollars. We're talking about Utahns are struggling right now with inflation. We know cost of housing is a big deal. And again, anytime we're talking about taxes subsidizing entertainment, culture, community, I think people bristle. And I think rightly so.
Yeah, well, and like I said, this was one of the big issues in my campaign. People were really concerned about the idea that taxes would likely increase, and I think the county has been pretty open about the fact that they anticipate raising taxes.
Yeah.
So we're going to see more taxes for the county, even though the county's role has shrunk over time as cities have grown and as we move to wall city. So there's some interesting dynamics here for me to say, and looking at this, say, how do we fund projects that we think are going to be beneficial, but do it in a way that doesn't continue to hurt taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the bill is Senate Bill 306. As Utah Senate Committee did vote to advance that bill, it will now move on through the process and be heard by the Senate. Aaron, we will keep our eye on this. Senator Dan McCay, the sponsor of this bill, last year, he is the senator that passed legislation to create the downtown revitalization zone. He represents Riverton in parts of Harriman, and he was very clear on the record about not wanting tax dollars in that part of the county to subsidize Salt Lake City in a way that wasn't beneficial for everyone. So we'll continue to track this. I think his intentions are good, but the devil is always in the details with anything like this. Coming up next on Inside Sources, we're going to shift gears and talk about housing. Let's talk about some ways Utah legislators are working to make housing more affordable and accessible here in Utah. That's coming up after the break.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-838-6161. That's 800-838-6161. 800-838-6161.
Febreze. It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
More than 50 million Americans suffer from a form of mental illness, and Utah isn't immune.
With nearly 1 in 3 people dealing with anxiety, depression, or some other form of mental illness.
But there's hope. We can all take action to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. KSL has teamed with 988 Utah, the free suicide and crisis lifeline, to bring you hope and help you thrive.
If you or a loved one is experiencing a mental health crisis, call or text 988.
Because a healthy mind matters.
The system is rigged against you. There's a lot of money to be made keeping you overweight and unhealthy.
At Soda Weight Loss, we have one goal, and that's to help you let go of the weight for good, without shots, without drugs, without hunger.
So I lost 25 pounds. I was never hungry. It was very, very easy. I couldn't believe how fast the weight came off.
With Soda Weight Loss, you get real results that will last your whole life.
I am down 26 pounds in 3 weeks. Feels great. I fit into my clothes again.
Soda Weight Loss is the #1 weight loss center in America for client satisfaction and results. And we have the proof at sodaweightloss.com.
Right now, for a limited time, 2 people can start with soda for the price of 1. For new clients only.
Double the reward, double the motivation, half the cost.
Get healthy. Beat the system. Visit sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda Weight Loss is, say it with me, state of the art.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and it's time to start thinking about the great events that are just around the corner in March. And as you consider the opportunities for entertainment, for ball games, for celebration, I want you to remember Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, where you are going to find the best steak you have ever had. But it's not just about steaks. It's about poultry and seafood and the side dishes and the desserts. They're all waiting for you at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. The perfect time to put together a killer St. Patrick's party? Right, it's Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And of course, with all of the March madness, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, when you're enjoying the games, it's time for you to make your reservations or pick up a gift card. And remember, always save room for dessert. Oh, and by the way, maybe you're going to be up skiing. Well, Hotel Park City. There's a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse waiting there for you. And of course, downtown Salt Lake City at 275 Southwest Temple, it's Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to Big Wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Here's how to get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. Our U.S.-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. An important message about your timeshare from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. Contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance, and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about timeshare cancellation.
Call 800-292-7788. 800-292-7788.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Eye on the Hill 2025. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Aaron, I am so excited to talk about this bill. I watched this bill as it was presented and voted on in committee, and I thought this was a novel approach to tackle housing affordability and accessibility here in the state of Utah. Now, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I probably do. Housing affordability. This is, I believe, the number one issue facing Utahns. This is the number one roadblock to Utah's future economic prosperity.
Well, I was going to say, if you sound like a broken record, then the entire state sounds like a broken record, because this is the top issue. No question.
And when it comes to fixing or solving an issue like this, I think we need to take a kitchen sink approach, as I like to call it, which means anything and everything. All options should be on the table when it comes to making progress on what is truly a very, very difficult issue. We're going to start with we're going to talk about a number of proposals on Utah's Capitol Hill that address housing affordability. But I want to start with the bill I mentioned that I watched in committee. It was held in committee, unfortunately. Novel approach, interesting idea, sponsored.
And gets at some issues that I think should be discussed.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Okay. The sponsor of the bill is Representative Galen Benyon, joining us live. Representative, do we have you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out. I know you're probably scheduled to go back on the floor in the House soon, so glad to have you while we can. Your bill is such an interesting proposal to address housing costs. Please tell us about it.
And so it's even more than cost, it's about home ownership, because we have seen a loss of home ownership. Salt Lake County worked with Lincoln Land Trust for a study and found that from 2018 to 2023, our county lost 10,600 homes from home ownership to rentals.
Wow.
And that's not something that we can just keep happening. And so this bill simply tries to raise to the purchase of a home the moral question of home ownership.
This is really interesting. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. So the purchaser, for the first 30 days of a single-family home, would sign an affidavit that they plan to live in the home if they're going to purchase during those first 30 days. But this bill is also respectful of the seller and says, hey, if you as the seller have a medical condition or you need to move quickly or you're underwater with your house, you could claim an exigent circumstance and not participate in this project.
Yeah, so I think you said this phrase earlier that I want to key in on, raises the moral question. And that to me is really interesting. When we're dealing with a housing crisis like this, and you've got a lot of investors that are coming in and buying up properties to use as rentals, you have this interesting question of how do you incentivize? I mean, this came up all the time in my campaign for county mayor. How do you incentivize and make it so that first-time home buyers especially can be on par, can have parity with these big investors who are coming in and sucking up all of this property for rentals? And so, I think it's really interesting that you're trying to highlight this moral dilemma of we want the market to work. We want free markets to work. But at the same time, we want people to be able to afford home ownership because home ownership is such a fundamental component of our society and a way that people are able to build generational wealth.
Yes. In fact, the Aspen Institute did a study and found that the average renter has about $10,000 of equity, while the average home owner has $400,000 of equity.
Wow, that's a big difference.
And that's key, right? Because your bill would help, especially first-time home buyers, perhaps making that transition from renting to home ownership. Right now, they are up against competition who can essentially pay with cash. Their competition in buying affordable homes doesn't have to demand the timeline required for financing and approval and all these things. It can take a while for that process to play out. And so the home seller clearly is incentivized to take an immediate cash offer, potentially from someone who is investing in the home or buying it to turn it into a rental. Is that what we're getting at with your bill?
It is. And it's also the question. One of the people that testified online, who's a realtor, said she's had clients who are confused about who is buying my home. And she's had people kind of posing as people that would potentially live in the home when really they're an investor.
Oh, interesting.
So this would just help people selling a home know with clarity the intent of the purchaser for that first 30 days. And they also talked in the committee about how the average time for a home to sell right now is 60 days. So it's really not impacting in a serious manner that exchange. So I was happy to have realtors and landlords and people who've been in the mortgage industry in support. And I'm sorry it didn't go farther.
So, I'm just curious, looking for kind of the teeth of the bill, right? If this were to move forward and if this were to eventually pass, what happens if you have a buyer who refuses to sign this or who signs it and then goes against the affidavit? In other words, it's nice when people volunteer that information, but if they don't, how do you actually raise it from a moral question to something that can start to impact legitimate policy?
And that really was not within the scope of this bill. There was no, agency to keep track. It was just between the buyer and the seller.
Representative Galen Bennion on the line with us live. I assume, Representative, from Utah's Capitol Hill. It's about time for the afternoon session on the floor to begin, so we are very grateful that you would spend a few minutes with us. Representative, I believe you represent parts of Cottonwood Heights, that area. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Is this issue with investors outbidding first-time home buyers to buy these homes, is this an issue in your district especially? Are there other parts of the state you're aware of that are really struggling with this particular issue?
It is around the state. When I was out knocking doors this summer, one of the people I spoke with had been waiting to move to Utah for 20 years, had been saving up. And he and his family were able to purchase a lovely home, not a starter home, but even he was fighting investors to get that home. We had a woman join the call to testify in committee that a home was for sale for around $420,000, where it was in her price range, and then was purchased by an investor and sold it for $150,000 more, like a month later, taking it out of her price range. So we hear that the housing crisis is about supply, but we're actively seeing investors remove or take away that supply through this process of investment.
Representative Galen Bennion, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You know, this is just, I'm in my own area. I've seen houses that are going for almost twice what I paid for mine 5 years ago.
Congratulations.
I know, it's great for me, right? But
Yeah.
I can never move. I can't afford it. So interesting to watch this. We've got more coming up on housing in the second hour of Inside Sources, so stay with us. Plus a few things the Trump administration is doing with press and migrants. Lots more coming up in that second hour. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top story. Utah's homeless shelters would have a zero-tolerance drug policy if a House bill continues to advance. Representative Tyler Clancy tells David Dujanovic he doesn't want to discourage people from using the shelters, and there will not be drug tests. But people will be prevented from bringing drugs inside.
We need to make sure that these places are safe. We've seen public challenges with growing capacity for homeless resources, and there's this perception that sometimes homeless shelters can be havens for crime.
Clancy's bill would enhance penalties for people who use drugs in shelters and put penalties on shelters themselves for not enforcing the rules. The bill is currently in the full House. KSL's top national story from ABC News. The CDC reports the first measles death in the U.S. in over a decade. Texas authorities say an unvaccinated school-aged child died from the disease after being hospitalized in Lubbock last week. Dr. Laura Johnson says this could be the new norm if more effort isn't put into vaccination and prevention.
If we don't continue to vaccinate and do the things that we did in order to make these illnesses of the past, then there'll be illnesses of the present.
The West Texas outbreak now stands at 124 cases. And taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow is ending the day down 187 points. That's nearly 0.5%, sitting at 43,434. S&P is up by a fraction. The NASDAQ is up by 50 points. Warmer temperatures for the rest of the week. We'll take a look at the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Sherry, what have you done to your hair?
What do you mean? Does it not look good?
It doesn't look good. It looks freaking amazing. I can't believe how thick and healthy it looks. Oh, I must know your secret.
No secret. It's hair volume from New Nordic.
Hair volume, huh? Well, it certainly certainly lives up to its name. Your hair has never looked so thick. It is gorgeous.
I was so tired of having thin and brittle hair. Ugh, and the shedding. So I figured I'd give Hair Volume a try. Needless to say, I'm thrilled with the results. Hey, where are you going?
I'm gonna pick up some Hair Volume right now. My reunion's next month and I want my hair to look as good as yours.
Hair Volume is the best-selling hair tablet in the world and one of many award-winning natural health products from New Nordic, the #1 supplier of dietary supplements in Scandinavia. Purchase at newnordicusa.com or your local CVS. Available as a tablet or delicious gummy. Help your hair look full, voluminous, and beautiful again at newnordicusa.com or CVS.
Discover the thrill of adventure at the Salt Lake Off-Road and Outdoor Expo. Dive into the latest gear, meet industry experts, and explore your passion for the great outdoors. Enthusiasts, friends, and families will learn what's new and what's cool, as well as the chance to win over $40,000 in door prizes and giveaways. Mark your calendars for the 10th annual Salt Lake Off-Road and Outdoor Expo, coming to the Mountain America Expo Center February 28th through March 1st. For tickets and information, visit slorex.com. A CPA should be the first person you think of to help you get the most from your taxes. CPAs are the most qualified professionals to prepare your taxes, maximize your refund, minimize your tax liability, and tax plan your future years. CPAs are more competitive price-wise than the big box stores. Along with extensive tax expertise, CPAs also provide personal financial planning, business growth strategies, and general accounting services. Your CPA can make valuable tax-saving suggestions that a software program can't anticipate. For 100 years, the Utah Association of CPAs has served the professional community as the go-to resource for education, training, and advocacy as trusted advisors. They want you to get the best when it comes to your financial health. Hire a CPA and get the best. Go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. That's uacpa.org. Proud sponsor of the Money Making Sense podcast with Heather Kelly. Download wherever you listen to podcasts.
It doesn't matter if your only neighbors are wildlife or just wild in general. If you work from home or work is technically at home, every homeowner can save money by getting a ThermWise home energy plan from Enbridge Gas. Discover ways to make your home more energy efficient and apply for rebates if you purchase any energy-efficient appliances. Schedule a home energy plan from Enbridge Gas at thermwise.com.
Traffic and weather together is brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. What's happening, Ricky?
It's a nice drive on the Valley freeways. No problems there. We do have a stalled vehicle in traffic. This is southbound Bangerter Highway in West Valley, about 3500 south. It's blocking a center lane of travel. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Just a beautiful day. Today's high 49 degrees, and it looks like tomorrow we are up to 52, 55 on Friday, Sunday, 60. And then a 20% chance of showers. Sunny and 45 downtown. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio. Eye on the Hill 2025. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Continuing our special coverage of the legislative session, this segment, and Aaron, we're going to keep talking about all the most exciting topics, your favorite subjects, Aaron. We're talking housing, transit reinvestment zones, convention centers. All of the fun items are the topics of our show.
Look, I am a
afternoon.
nerd, and like DIY housing projects are my jam right now. So anything relating to housing.
Give us a project. What are you working on right now?
I'm painting my basement right now.
Painting is the worst.
I
Aaron.
love it. I love it.
Next time I have to paint anything, I know who to call.
Yes, you do.
Okay, welcome back to Inside Sources, Hour 2 here on KSL News Radio. I'm your host, Taylor Morgan, here with Aaron Ryder. Senate Bill 26 is probably, I'd say, top 3 Aaron Ryder most exciting bills for you this session, sponsored by the good Honorable State Senator Wayne Harper. This bill directly goes after housing, transit reinvestment zone amendments. This is all part of the conversation surrounding the convention center, what's happening with the reinvestment zone in Salt Lake City, the west side of Salt Lake City, downtown, all of it.
Well, let me ask you, Taylor, what do you think the solution should be about housing?
Oh, with housing affordability?
Yeah. Well, we have just a second here. We're gonna be chatting with Senator Harper, but I just want to know real quick, what are your thoughts?
Well, that's a really good question. All right, I haven't thought a ton about this.
I'm putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot. Thank you for that.
We can talk to Senator Harper if you want.
I will defer to the good senator here in a moment, but I would say the first thing is we have a lack of supply. We have an undersupply of housing. We simply need to build more. We need to branch out. Transportation, perhaps I'm picking up what you're putting down here, Aaron. Transportation is key because if we're going to build more housing in key areas of this state, we have got to make that housing accessible in terms of transportation to jobs and to good paying jobs. So a lot of it has to do with the undersupply and then also just Utahns being able to get to areas where new housing can be built efficiently. Well, I'm sure that our guest right now, Senator Wayne Harper, will probably have a much better answer for you and for our listeners. Senator, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking a few minutes off the Senate floor, I believe, to join us here on Inside Sources.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to join you too and help to answer some questions.
How did I do, Senator? Was I even in the ballpark of a good answer on that?
No, you're very good. What we're trying to do here is to maximize the state and the taxpayers have put investments into major transit systems, transportation hubs, and we need to go through and make sure that the investment is really enhanced around those areas. We've got people who want to have mass transit as their primary mode or as a secondary mode. So what we're doing here is saying, around these investments, quarter mile around these investment areas, let's go through and get additional housing density and housing options. It can be for sale, it can be for rent, but let's go through and get, some of the condos or more of the high rise, or maybe we've got the patio homes of clustered housing or townhomes, but let's get that density around it so where people can walk, where they can have recreation, where they can have housing, where they can go through and have shopping, more convenient rather than having to drive, for a couple miles. Let's maximize our investment.
We've seen some of this, Senator, in places like Daybreak, right? I feel like Daybreak is one of those areas that was kind of created with this idea. There's a tracks line there, lots of townhouses, single-family homes, different kinds of housing options, and it sort of seems to be built around that. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Yes, where you can go through and have housing that's available for multiple lifestyles, multiple incomes. If you're a single person, if you're a couple, if you have children, we want to have different housing there. But yes, that's exactly right. Some of the places you look around and say, well, they just want to do apartments. We want a complete community where people can live, work, play, recreate, and feel comfortable.
We're speaking with Senator Wayne Harper about his bill, Senate Bill 26, Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone Amendments. Senator, your bill also addresses the process around a convention center reinvestment zone in a county of the first class. Can you tell us about that element of the bill?
Yeah. What we have is we've got some wonderful facilities there. The Salt Palace, Bravenel Hall, Utah Museum of Culture and Arts are all right there in a little 4-block district. They're getting a little bit aged, and as we're preparing for the Olympics, there's some desire to go through and enhance, expand, remodel those. And what this bill does is it creates a little zone for that where the taxes generated in that area, property tax and sales tax, will be reinvested to pay for the expansion, the remodel of those facilities, plus the infrastructure like the sewer and water line upgrades, rather than going through and having the entire county or state pay for those. It's really an option for those people who use it and for the property taxes there to be reinvested in so we maintain an asset and the users will pay for it, not everybody statewide.
Now, Senator, your bill is about amendments to housing and transit reinvestment zone. So I'm curious, what are the changes that we're hoping to make here? How does this sort of fit within the existing structure of how things currently work?
Yeah, well, when we've created a couple housing and transit reinvestment zones, in 3 counties, in Salt Lake, Davis, and Utah counties. This is kind of like lessons learned, like, we need to make sure that there's trigger dates. We need to make sure that there are housing with multiple bedrooms in. We need to make sure that there's a place to park a car. So this is just kind of a cleanup of what we've done before to make sure that the next ones actually work in a better fashion and are more applicable to more people.
Senator Harper, I understand that the House, in-House committee yesterday, the bill was held. What is next for Senate Bill 26, Housing and Transit Reinvestment Amendments? Is this bill going to continue, or have we kind of hit a pause on it for this year?
No, it is back in committee this afternoon.
Excellent.
There were some questions. We needed to have some additional stakeholder input. I'm waiting for a substitute bill that represents comments that came from the Tax Commission, from Salt Lake County, from Salt Lake City, from the business community. So this is just, we're enhancing what we're doing, but giving that pause gave us more eyes on it for a longer period of time so we can have a better bill and a better project moving forward.
That's really good to know. Thanks for clarifying that, Senator. And certainly one thing I do want to point out, Aaron, is when a bill like this that's complicated, that affects so many stakeholders, as Senator Harper just mentioned, anytime a bill is held and then improved, substituted, amended, that reflects public input and stakeholder input. I think that's a wonderful thing. The process can be messy, but this is really how it works. So
well, like we've said multiple times, even earlier on the show, contact your legislators.
Yes.
Let them know how you feel about things, because it does matter.
Okay, Senator Harper, while we still have you, 20 seconds. I'm putting you on the hot seat, sir. I have to ask, is this going to increase my taxes?
This bill will not increase your taxes.
Okay. That is all I need to know. Thank you for the clear answer. That is Senator Wayne Harper joining us to talk about his bill, Housing and Transportation Reinvestment Zone Amendment. Senator, you can go back to the Senate floor. Good luck. Best wishes on the bill. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thank you kindly.
Yeah. Aaron, we're going to leave state politics behind in the next segment and talk a bit about something the Donald Trump administration is doing that's concerning news organizations.
Wait, something that I feel like we're talking about one thing.
Not something that is concerning, something concerning news organizations.
Okay.
Aaron, not to set you off there. Stay right here with us, because KSL News Radio's news director will join us for a conversation on freedom of the press.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a colonial with high ceilings, hardwood floors, in a peaceful neighborhood. And you found it. Now, every Saturday at 6 a.m., you get to wake to the sound of your neighbor's leaf blower. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Here's how to get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. Our U.S.-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit ConsumerCellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
The system is rigged against you. There's a lot of money to be made keeping you overweight and unhealthy.
At Soda Weight Loss, we have one goal, and that's to help you let go of the weight for good, without shots, without drugs, without hunger.
So I lost 25 pounds. I was never hungry. It was very, very easy. I couldn't believe how fast the weight came off.
With Soda Weight Loss, you get real results that will last your whole life.
I am down 26 pounds in 3 weeks. Feels great. I fit into my clothes again.
Soda Weight Loss is the #1 weight loss center in America for client satisfaction and results, and we have the
proof at sodaweightloss.com.
Right now, for a limited time, 2 people can start with soda for the price of 1 for new clients only.
Double the reward, double the motivation, half the cost.
Get healthy. Beat the system. Visit sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda Weight Loss is, say it with me, state of the art.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Febreze. It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now, all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to the A to Z savings event at AutoZone.
Yeah, happy to be here. Can I get some rotors?
Would you like brake pads with that?
How much are the brake pads?
Free with the rotors.
Free. Really?
Really, free.
Okay, I also need some oil.
Would you like an oil filter with that?
Yeah, how much is that?
Free with 5 quarts of oil.
Free? Really?
Really, free. It's part of the A to Z savings event.
You might as well call it A to free.
At AutoZone.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
From the beginning of his second term in office, President Donald Trump has said he would change how the administration is covered by the media. No surprise. One of his biggest points was opening up access to new news groups, not just keeping it to legacy media outlets. But yesterday, the administration made a pretty big change that goes against roughly 70 years of precedent. Before we get into our discussion, let's hear what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had to say when announcing these changes.
Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility.
Okay, I think there's a lot we can unpack there. So joining us for this conversation is KSL News Radio News Director Becky Bruce. She has 25 years of experience as a professional journalist. So we thought it would be really helpful to get her experience. Becky, welcome to the show.
With full disclosure that I've never actually worked at the White House, but man, wouldn't that be cool?
Would it, though, nowadays?
I think it would be, here's an interesting fun fact for you. If you're a fan of history at all, during the Watergate investigation, Woodward and Bernstein only attended 1 or 2 news conferences at the White House during the entire run of their investigation. Most of their stories came from their own shoe leather reporting, gathering their own details. So Would that really make a difference? Are we still going to cover who we cover?
That's a really good question, Becky, right? Because when I think of the White House press briefing room, I don't necessarily believe that is the place where news is happening. I think it's a lot about very controlled, managed talking points, and the press secretary is trying to set the agenda and the narrative. But again, I still think it's an institution when it comes to our democracy. So I don't want to be flippant about it. I want to get to a key point here that this is news to me. This is not, of course, we're all aware of the drama surrounding the Associated Press and the name of the Gulf, whether it's the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America. It's in question, I guess. But the drama surrounding the AP reporter is one thing. This is far larger.
This is an expansion.
Please explain. Yeah.
And interestingly, I think if you start to look at just kind of the last few weeks, it puts in context there have been a few things a little at a time just sort of chipping away at the rights of the free press, which, as we all know, is protected under the First Amendment. We are the only job that is not a government job that has constitutional protection. That's pretty cool.
That's a good point.
Right? So this is a latest iteration of that, and it's definitely a concern. So with revoking the White House Correspondents Association right to control who's in that press briefing room, that has more importance or less importance depending on the administration. In some administrations, your only ability to ask somebody a tough question would be in that briefing room because that president just hasn't been available to reporters, right?
Yeah.
With other presidents, they've been much more open, and that's less challenging. And then you have your situations like the Watergate investigation, in which reporters had to go to great lengths around the White House to try and figure out what was really going on. So here's why this is a concern. The White House Correspondents Association isn't just arbitrary. It's been around for more than 100 years. It was actually founded like right at the beginning of World War I. And the reason it was founded back then, I didn't know this until I started looking it up today, was because Congress at the time was threatening to restrict access over people asking questions that then President Woodrow Wilson didn't like.
Oh.
Okay.
Sounds a little familiar.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right?
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
But most of us, the only thing we know about the White House Correspondents Association is, well, they do this fancy journalist prom every year called the Correspondents' Dinner, where they bring a comedian in and it's very funny and everybody ha ha ha. Trump is one of 3 presidents in recent memory that has decided not to attend those. Jimmy Carter opted out of attending twice, and so did President Nixon.
Interesting. So tell us, what does the White House press, like, what does the group do? What does the association do? And why is it important that they are getting rid of the association, or at least taking control away from the association and making their own determination about who can be in that room?
Yeah, so their chief duty is just to regulate who has access to the press briefing room, because we want a free press in America. We have a First Amendment that says that. But there's only so much room in the briefing room for physical people to stand. So that's part one, is just there's a lack of space. And so part of the deal is the Correspondents Association takes the applications from everybody and figures out who gets a seat in the room, with the understanding that everybody who's granted that access will share it with the rest of the world, so that organizations like KSL can have access to that content without having to physically be in the room.
Okay.
They also do other things associated with that. The Correspondents' Dinner is just one example, but that's probably their most important thing that they do. So what this means is that the White House has said, we're going to be the gatekeepers now. The White House Correspondents Association has largely operated as an independent body. So they're there, and the journalists who work with that association have space in the West Wing right along with actual Trump administration workers. But they're part of that association.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions here about what else this could possibly mean. Are those folks going to lose space to their desks?
Yeah.
Are they going to, lose access to other things?
Great question. Yeah.
And how is the administration going to pick? The Correspondents Association has been pretty level-headed and fair about who they allow to have access. And again, just because you don't have a seat at the table doesn't mean you don't get the information.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that, quote, legacy outlets will still be allowed to join. But
she said apply.
Oh, I'm sorry. Be welcome to apply. I want to ask you about that in a moment. But she also said new voices are going to be welcomed. do you have any sense of who those new voices could be, or to whom is she referring? Any indications? What do we know?
I have an educated guess, so take that for what it's worth, grain of salt. We know that there was already restricted access at the Pentagon. And one of the things that happened there was a couple of legacy organizations lost their spots in the Pentagon briefing room, which, by the way, is way smaller than it looks like on TV.
Becky, I'm sorry to interrupt you. When we say legacy organizations, who are these for our listeners?
New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, NBC, AP, Reuters, those types of
Got
things.
it. Okay,
right?
great.
A couple of those folks, not everybody, lost a spot and in their stead were a couple of other news organizations that some people have described as leaning to the right. Reasonable minds may disagree about that characterization, but that's the idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what happens at this point? What should media organizations do at this point? I mean, where does this go? How does this and let me add on to this. How does this impact news that comes out of the White House?
Well, two things. I think the people like the Woodwards and Bernsteins of the world, they have different names, they look a little younger now, are going to still do the work that they do. And that's never going to stop just because they are sitting in a particular physical space. I have a personal opinion about this that I'll share. I think the one thing that the organizations who work in the White House Correspondents Association could do that would have a lot of impact is just simply not go. If they all decided not to show up to the daily White House press briefing, which happens every single day, that would send a certain kind of message.
But do you think that's realistic? I mean, I think we're looking at a prisoner's dilemma with this because it's game theory, right? Like if every other news organization doesn't show up, but you do,
it's tough, right? You'd have to get everybody else on board, and that's the part where I don't know that they would be able to do that. Long term, of course, the AP has already sued over their access. Now that this has been expanded to the full White House Correspondents Association, I can only imagine more lawsuits. It's legally squishy, though. You know, it's not like the White House Correspondents Association was created by law.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the White House giving access to the White House, right?
But at the same time, nobody should be discriminated against for a perceived viewpoint.
Right. Although, interestingly, I can see, President Trump and his administration are trying to open this up to different kinds of content creators. And we're talking about influencers and all sorts of people who they're now sort of including in this, which we know that Trump likes social media. We know that he uses it and he leverages it to his own advantage. So, how do you bring those people in if that's what the administration wants to do, even though there's just not enough room in the building? I mean, is this just,
Well, and I think that's a different conversation. If you want to have a conversation with the White House Correspondents Association about expanding their definition of who should have a seat at that table, let's do that, right? I'm all for it. But I don't know that I like the idea of the government telling us what the definition of a journalist is.
Interesting.
And again, to your point, constitutionally protected, only non-government job that is protected. That's a wonderful point. Thank you, Becky.
You got it.
Thank you so much, KSL News Radio News Director Becky Bruce, for joining us on the show. Okay, so next on Inside Sources, we're going to go back up to Utah's Capitol Hill to discuss proposed changes to the state's judiciary. We've talked about this before. We're talking about it again. But this time we're chatting with State Senator Brady Brammer after the break.
Good afternoon, 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan, KSL's top local story this hour. Utah's state legislature is considering a resolution asking the federal government to provide more money for the poor and with fewer strings attached. Representative Mark Strong says the current cutoff is keeping people from pursuing more work.
We have a cliff where people are working, and literally if they make one more dollar, or if they exceed that minimum at all, or that threshold, then they would lose 100% of the benefit.
If passed, the resolution would send a message to the federal government that Utah wants more control, but wouldn't result in any direct action. At the moment, it's just a resolution. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Trump held his first cabinet meeting today. He said the U.S. has seen a sharp drop in southern border crossings, but he says the immigration numbers won't stop him from issuing tariffs on Mexico and Canada.
I was going to do it on April 1st, but I'm a little bit superstitious, so I made it April 2nd. The tariffs go on, not all of them, but a lot of them, and I think you're going to see something that's going to be amazing.
Elon Musk also spoke during the meeting and spent some time defending federal cuts made by his Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Your money at this moment on Wall Street, the Dow is down 188 points. It was a mixed market today. And coming up, temperatures in the 50s on the way the next few days. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and over the years, you've heard me praise the Kinetico soft water systems. You've heard that so often, you might be tempted to chuck a shoe at your radio. Well, hang on, because I've got some great news. Get this, Kinetico will pay you $50. I'm not kidding on this. They'll pay you $50 to buy a competing water softener from another dealer. Ready for the rules, though? Well, they're pretty simple. Invite Kinetico of Utah to your home for a free estimate on a Kinetico water softener. If within 60 days of hearing them out, you buy any other system from any other water softener dealer, Kinetico of Utah will fork over $50. That's how sure they are that after hearing them out, you won't settle for anything less than a Kinetico water softener. Now, this offer does expire in 30 days, so don't delay. Call Northern Utah's authorized Kinetico dealer, Kinetico Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com. That's softwaterutah.com. Tell them Doug sent you.
Is that a new Samsung Galaxy A15 5G?
Yeah, I got it for free when I joined Cricket Nation.
Sounds pretty great.
At Cricket, anyone can get a new phone when they switch.
Whoa.
With a high-quality camera, meaning more flattering selfies for all, and super fast 5G, so you can post them for all to see. Your friends, your family, your ex. Free phone! Free phone!
Okay, I'll switch.
Welcome to Cricket Nation.
Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. Must bring your number to Cricket on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax due at sale. These terms and other restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a walk-up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbors' dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
If you've ever set New Year's resolutions before, you know how difficult it is to follow through because you have to wait to see the results. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and in honor of your New Year, New You resolutions, Any Hour Services is having our New Year, New System sale. From now until the end of February, Any Hour Services will give you $2,025 off a new furnace and air conditioner. And you don't have to wait to save the money. You get $2,025 off at the time of purchase. The only thing you have to do to qualify for our New Year, New System sale is call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate. When you call, there's no obligation to buy. Just schedule a time to meet that works best for you. Let me say that again. From now until the end of February, when you have Any Hour Services install a new furnace and air conditioner, we'll give you $2,025 off. Call Any Hour Services right now and schedule a free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Here's Ricky Meese.
The stalled vehicle has been cleared out of traffic southbound Bangerter in West Valley at about 3500 south, and we are back to a quiet drive. That's on our freeways and our main secondaries. Lagoon is hiring full-time year-round ride maintenance technicians and electricians with journeyman or apprentice-level experience. Apply online at lagoonpark.com/jobs. Must be 18 years of age or older to apply. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL forecast, we're going to fall short of 50 this afternoon, but we're going to get there tomorrow. Thursday's high 52 degrees, right now 45. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. This is Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Eye on the Hill 2025. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Several bills this legislative session address the role of the judiciary. A few of these bills also address who can bring lawsuits before the courts and what Utah courts can do with appeals. A few weeks ago, here on KSL Inside Sources, we spoke about Senate Bills 203 and 204, both sponsored by State Senator Brady Brammer. We're very pleased and excited to be joined right now live by Senator Brammer. Senator Brammer, you're stepping off the Senate floor to spend a few minutes with us right now. Really appreciate that. I have researched these bills. I've dug into the substitute new versions of these bills, Senator, and this for me is a great reminder of why I chose not to go to law school. So thank you for that. But fortunately,
I will choose not to be offended.
I am joined by Aaron Ryder, who is a lawyer. And of course, Senator Brammer, we know that you as well have a law degree. These are complicated bills, and there's new versions of them. Please, if you can, walk our listeners through Senate Bill 203 and 204. Let's start perhaps with 203. I know this bill was changed, substituted in committee this morning, and then was passed out. Let's start here. Can you tell us about Senate Bill 203? What has changed in the latest version?
Sure. First of all, it's a pleasure to be with you. Senate Bill 203, what it is attempting to do is, we generally allow anyone who has been injured, and that's constitutionally mandated, that they have an ability to go to court. Now, sometimes there are instances when another person is bringing a claim on their behalf, and that's what Senate Bill 203 addresses. And essentially what it says is if there's an association that is bringing a bill on behalf of a member of their association, they just have to say how that member was injured and have permission of that member to bring the claim on their behalf. What we're really looking at here is we want to make sure that our courts are open to everyone who can bring a claim, but there needs to be someone that is identified that could bring that claim. And that's the major push for Senate Bill 203.
Okay.
So, Senator Brammer, I at least have not had the pleasure of talking to you about these bills yet, and I would love to know, can you tell us just a little bit about the motivation behind the bills, what we're trying to accomplish here? Because this is a really kind of nuanced piece of legislation, right? It's hey, people can come, they can bring a suit if they're injured, but if there's an association, a third party who's trying to bring it on behalf of someone else, then these rules apply. So I'm curious, where is the motivation for this bill? What are we ultimately trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, so the major motivation is, first of all, under our Constitution, the jurisdiction of our courts is not set by the courts. It's actually mandated to be set by statute by the legislature. And
we're talking about state courts here, right?
Yes, state courts. Okay. And then, but as far as what we're talking about in the larger context, we're seeing more and more what are called public interest lawsuits. And that's not a bad thing, but you want to make sure that there is an actual person who has been injured as opposed to a political fight that people want to have in court. And so we want to make sure that there is a Utahn or someone who would have jurisdiction in Utah behind every single lawsuit. We're not going to be doing these hypothetical lawfare cases. There's got to be somebody that's been injured in the middle of it.
I actually quite like this because, or at least that point that you talked about there, I want to piggyback on that for a second. One of the things, the United States is a litigious environment just because of how our court system is set up, right? So it's not terribly difficult to bring a lawsuit in the United States, and we have a lot of lawsuits in the United States. But this point, I think, is actually quite important. In order to avoid frivolous lawsuits that waste taxpayer money, that waste the court's time, that waste a whole bunch of other people's time and money, you want to make sure that anyone who brings that lawsuit is actually injured by whatever it is that they are claiming as a plaintiff. And that's an interesting, that's something that I think, again, it's a little bit of a nuanced thing, but I wanted to point that out and really call that out, that the idea here is that we're trying to avoid frivolous lawsuits. We want to make sure that somebody is injured. Now, an association could still bring a lawsuit, but they'd have to do it on behalf of one of their members, right?
Correct. So they just have to have at least one member who would have standing on their own and permission from that member to bring it on their behalf. So it's not a high bar, but they have to have somebody. We just don't want to have these hypotheticals driving our lawsuits, because what that turns into is an attempt to legislate through the courts as opposed to through the legislature, where you're only, in the courts, you only have one judge making a decision. Generally you want to have that decision made in the legislature, and you want disputes resolved in the courts. So we're really trying to keep that separation of powers in place there through all of this.
Okay, let's transition. Let's talk about Senate Bill 204, Right to Appeal Amendments. This bill addresses the right to an appeal of an injunctive order. Give us a snapshot of this bill and perhaps describe any changes in the latest version.
Yeah, so this one is, again, some of these are fairly nuanced legal issues, but at the beginning of a case, especially on a constitutional challenge of a law, you can seek to have that law prevented from going into effect. And that's fair. We should all be distrustful of the government at times and be able to go to court and say the government may have done something unconstitutional. We have to have that ability. But what this does is it says when a district court judge says that a law is unconstitutional on its face, it gets a direct appeal to the Supreme Court immediately for the Supreme Court to decide whether the injunction was entered correctly and whether or not the law is unconstitutional on its face. And the reason for that is sometimes these issues tend to float around in the district court level for far too long. We just want to have our Supreme Court, which is ultimately who's going to make the decision, decide one way or another whether a law is constitutional or not. And then the legislature can come in after and either repeal it or, it'll be essentially null. And then they can adjust things to make it constitutional, or they can decide, yeah, that's not a good idea and not move forward at all. But you want to drive it to the point of the actual decision makers on constitutionality, which would be our Utah Supreme Court.
Now, Senator Brammer, are there any concerns that this would put additional burden on the Supreme Court? If you're bypassing the appellate level entirely and going straight to the Supreme Court, does this put additional burden if suddenly you have dozens, of injunctions that are heading straight to the Supreme Court, and they have to decide not only on the validity of the injunction, but now they also have to decide on the actual issue that got the injunction in the first place?
I think that's a valid concern. There's two things on that. Number one, ultimately, this will be the decision of the Supreme Court on the constitutionality of a law. And so I don't think it may speed up their decision point. But the other issue that we're dealing with in Utah's courts, traditionally our Utah Supreme Court has averaged about 71 opinions per year. The last 3 years, they've done 44 opinions, 25 opinions, and 46 opinions, which the 25 opinions was the lowest number of opinions in the nation in 2023. They're not as busy as they could be. And in fact, so far this year, in the 7 weeks of this year, our Supreme Court has only issued one opinion. And so we have other concerns as to the productivity level of our Utah Supreme Court, but we don't think this will add any additional burden that they can't handle because, frankly, they've been operating at between 30 and 60% less than their capacity over the last 3 years.
Senator Brady Brammer, thank you so much for joining KSL Inside Sources to talk about Senate Bills 203 and 204. Really, as you said, nuanced bills, really important issues, and thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you both so much. It was my pleasure.
Coming up next in our final segment on today's KSL Inside Sources, we're going to go national one more time and talk about a new registry for migrants. We'll be right back.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-838-6161. That's 800-838-6161. 800-838-6161.
Febreze. It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
A
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
How would you like to finally lose all those unwanted pounds quickly without spending thousands on painful injections or prescriptions? Hi, it's Donna Simpson, health and wellness expert. You probably know someone that is using Ozempic, the hottest diet craze in the country. Everyone knows about this prescription injection. Celebs use it to look their best. The problem is most of us can't afford Ozempic, and these injections can be so uncomfortable. Now you can lose the weight just as easily, but with no needles, no expensive prices, no side effects, and no worries. You need to try Lozempic, a new miracle weight loss breakthrough that performs so well it's been called nature's Ozempic. Lozempic is an easy-to-take diet pill now available without a prescription, being used by thousands to get rid of those unwanted pounds. So call now and find out how to get a free bottle.
To find out how to get your free bottle of Lozempic, call 800-699-7098, 800-699-7098. Free bottles are limited, so call 800-699-7098. That's 800-699-7098.
This is Rod with great news for Utah homebuyers. When you hire the Save Right team of realtors at Realty Path, you get a Bankbuster loan with a fixed interest rate in the 5s. What is a Bankbuster loan? A Bankbuster loan gives you a fixed interest rate in the 5s. Bankbuster loans give you maximum buying power. Monthly payments can be up to $800 lower. Bankbuster loans can save you hundreds of thousands in mortgage interest. Get your Bankbuster loan when you hire the Save Right team of realtors to help you buy a home. Start with a rate in the 2s. Ask us how. Call 801-APPROVE or visit SaveRight.com. Get way more home for a lot less money. Get a Bankbuster loan. Call 801-APPROVE or visit SaveRight.com.
Take advantage of Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric's $99 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. That's right, $99 or it's free. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
The doctors told me I'd never move or do anything again.
A car crash in her 20s could not crush her tenacious spirit.
I don't want to be average. Average is close to the bottom, but this is the top.
Becky has lived 62 years as a quadriplegic.
She's an inspiration to all of us.
Navigating life's detours with relentless faith.
He could have healed me, he could have stopped it, he could have done anything he wanted, but I think he just changed my assignment.
The Becky Reeves story, Testament of Triumphs, tonight at 10 on KSL.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Fines or prison time could be coming for migrants who are here illegally and don't register with a new database meant to track, quote, aliens in this country illegally. All right, I just want to say that when we first started talking about Trump's efforts to go after those who are here illegally, initially we had a conversation, I think it was me and Greg Skordas, about is he just going after those who are who are violent criminals, or is this a larger play? And I feel like this is the larger play. Now we're actually talking about a registry for anybody who's here illegally. Taylor, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, where do you think this actually works? Because there have been efforts at doing something like this in the past,
yeah,
and that have died. And now we're kind of just reviving that.
This is really tough for me, Aaron. I'm really conflicted on this, just personally, my opinions, because on one hand, I think all of us have grown very frustrated with a lack of action when it comes to immigration reform.
Yeah.
This is something that Congress and the president have talked about but haven't taken action on for 4 or 5 decades, right? And it's been used. The issue of immigration reform has been used as a political football by both parties, yet neither have done anything substantive on it. A lot of talk, no action, right? Clearly, Donald Trump came into office with a mandate from American voters, won the popular vote, won the Electoral College, both by large margins. And the number one issue among American voters was, well, number two issues, really. They both were polling at the same rates, and that is the economy and immigration reform. And so it is on one hand, and here's where I'm conflicted. On one hand, it is a breath of fresh air to see action.
To see anything.
To see anything happening, right? Illegal migration is down. We have some evidence, some early numbers show that whatever Donald Trump is doing, good or bad, it is having an impact on reducing the numbers of people who are crossing the border illegally. Now, of course, the other side of this coin where I'm conflicted, it is one thing to target for deportation violent criminals who came to this country illegally, who have been convicted of a violent crime after coming illegally. It is one thing to deport them. It is another thing altogether, I believe, to cast a much wider net and simply target all migrants, illegal migrants, and especially creating a registry for all migrants, Aaron. I'm uncomfortable with how we are treating migrants and how it's one thing to discourage illegal immigration. It's another thing to paint all of these individuals with such a broad brush.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm going to play devil's advocate just a tiny bit for a second here. If you are someone who has come here legally, if you have followed the protocols, if you've put in the applications for the visas, the green cards, whatever it is, you're already on some sort of register, for lack of a better word, right? Like the government knows who you are. And I think you can make the argument that the government should know who you are if you are not a U.S. citizen and you are trying to become a U.S. citizen or come here to this country.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, that's already done. And I think they have been pretty explicit about the fact that this registry does not intend to affect those people. This is for those who are here illegally. And I think you can also make the case that if you are here illegally, you are breaking a law. You have come into this country unlawfully, and that shouldn't necessarily get a free pass. Now, like you said, I am concerned the way that we treat people, and respecting human dignity is I think that's where we run into some issues with this. I know back in the 40s, they had an immigrant registry, and the intention of that was to catch suspected communists.
And so here's where I get really uncomfortable. What happens to this registry once these individuals follow the law and become citizens? What happens then?
Well, I don't think we get that far, because my question before then is what happens once you sign up for the registry?
Yeah. And the registry in the 1940s, I'm sorry, I stepped in there, continued that, because this is, the Wall Street Journal mentions this. And talks about how we initially set up a similar registry in the 1940s to catch suspected communists.
Yeah. And that fell into disuse by the 60s because the government decided it was way too costly and really didn't actually provide a lot of benefit. We got through the scare of the 50s and all of the stuff with communism during that time frame. And then there's a practicality question to this, right? How do you, if you have, just because you have the registry doesn't mean that people are actually going to sign up for it.
Yeah.
And if you know that signing up for it is going to lead to likely deportation, which I have to think is the outcome, if you sign up for this, I highly doubt that you're suddenly on a path to citizenship.
That's my concern. Yeah.
Right?
So I am all for a secure border. We need a secure border. Part of having a secure border is an efficient, effective process for legal immigration that actually functions, that actually works. We need that desperately. We know, of course, and it's not just the cliche that we're a nation of immigrants. It is true, right? It's more than a cliche. It's the truth. But at the same time, many of the migrants who are here illegally, they are contributors to our society. Our economy is dependent upon them. We need to find a way not just to scare them, but those who have not committed crimes other than coming here illegally, of course, right? We need to bring them out of the shadows. We need to help them get on a path to being here legally, to paying taxes, to being recognized as legitimate contributors. I think this is terrifying to them. I think this is driving them further underground, and it is not legitimizing their very real and, frankly, vital contributions to our economy.
So, again, to play a little bit of devil's advocate, we've been dealing...
You mean Trump advocate or devil's advocate, Erin?
Devil's advocate,
I'm just
they're not the same
you.
thing.
Yeah. Are they? No.
Well, we can,
just teasing.
We can debate that
Sorry.
at another time.
Continue.
Now you're making me lose my train of thought.
I'm
Thank you very much, Taylor.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm going to regain it. I mean, so I'm concerned about what happens to people like the Dreamers, right? Kids who came here with their parents illegally, who've never known any other place. I like the idea of a grandfathering system, but here's the question and here's the point that I was making. We've been talking about this for years. We've been talking about this for decades, and nothing has changed. So is this the kind of thing, I find myself caught between a rock and a hard place on how I feel about this, because on the one hand, like we were saying, you have to do something. Yeah. And maybe this doesn't work, but maybe it does something and it starts something moving in a different direction. But is this the right something to do? And I think that's also a valid question.
And that is, honestly, Erin, that is the process that goes through my head with a lot of the things that are happening under this new Donald Trump administration, whether it's immigration policy, deportations, whether it's Doge and Elon Musk's approach to things. Yeah. I mean, frankly, it is also, I think, very welcome. It's another breath of fresh air to see government waste exposed, to see someone trying
and to see anyone even talking about it.
To be going after government spending and deficit spending and the debt. Now, of course, this getting back to the point you articulated, it does matter how we do it, right? We shouldn't be in the constant, perpetual phase of analysis paralysis where because we can't do it perfectly in a way that everybody wants, we don't do anything. Mm-hmm. That's where we've been for half a century.
Yeah.
And so the inertia of motion here, of doing something, I think is valuable.
I think so, too. Well, I'm sure we will see more on this to come. We're not done with this story, so be sure to keep listening to Inside Sources as we follow this out. Thank you so much for listening to the show today. Greg Skordas and Rusty Cannon will be with you tomorrow starting at 1 p.m. In the meantime, stick around for Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. We're at 46 degrees. We have sunshine, blue sky. KSL's top story. A group of lawyers, Utah lawyers, held a news conference today claiming that state lawmakers are attacking the justice system. KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera is live with the latest. Eric.
Jeff, I spoke with Christy Kimball, partner at Holland & Hart Law Firm and chair with the Utah Bar. And of the 9 bills they listed, she's especially worried about the one that would create a legislative panel to review judges' performances.
We don't want judges to turn into having to be subject to a popularity contest and having to bend what they think the rule of law is to what they think another branch of government wants them to do.
House Speaker Mike Schultz has voiced support for that bill, arguing it would give voters more information to make informed decisions. But a nonpartisan group already provides judge evaluations for voters every election cycle. Around 50 attorneys gathered on the South Steps, presenting 900 signatures from lawyers statewide, an action they say is unprecedented in its scale and support. Reporting live, Eric Cabrera, KSL News Radio.
Thanks, Eric. After a 16-year-old autistic boy was killed by police, a state investigation
the care we need without the kindness, generosity, and tireless work of VA federal employees who ensure that we can get the care and benefits that we need for our bodies.
This military veteran says